So this tutorial is going to be how to go ahead and set up a Ubiquiti or Ubiquiti, whatever way they pronounce it, Cloud Key Controller. Let's go ahead. Obviously you'd want to create an account first if you haven't already. And let's see if I can remember the correct password. And attempt one. Obviously that's not it. That's not it either. There we go. So as you can see here, we have no cloud keys at all at this point. Let's go ahead and click Find Cloud Key. Aha! Pending adoption. Let's adopt it. So it's going to go ahead and we're going to provide a username and password. And here's the host name. I'm going to leave that the same for the same reason. SSH, I don't really care. I'll put something in here just for the hell of it. This is not a unit I use daily. I actually have one built into Windows on a Windows server that runs just fine, but we're going to do this just for the sake of this tutorial. So let's hit submit, and it will do its little configuration. At this point, you obviously have your cloud key, you put the card in it, and you provided it with power. So you should have a white light that's on that wasn't blinking up to this point, and then after you do this, it should turn blue. So adoption in progress. In a second, it should show itself. We'll let it go, and it will show in just a moment. And there it is. So that's exactly what we want to see. So here's our controller. We're going to click on it, and looks like it's getting there. And let's open it up. So here it is. It's starting a radio back. We have our launch site option right here. Let's go ahead and launch it. I suggest doing this from the location before you ever leave. You don't want to fight with it. This is just warning you that the SSL certificate on it is basically a generic, not a big deal. After all, it doesn't really matter in most cases. I'm sure somebody will refute that, but you know what? You can make your own tutorial if you don't like it. So here's our options over here: the dashboard, the map, the devices, the clients, the statistics, the insights. You have your events, your alerts, your settings, and your live chat support. I don't bother with the live chat. If I set something up, it's because it's usually at small locations where that will never happen. If I ever become a full provider of nothing but Wi-Fi, maybe. So first thing you want to do is go into your settings. So here's our settings. Obviously select your country. This way when you provision the access points, you'll have the limitations that are appropriate for your location. We have my device authentication down here, remote logging, all this wonderful stuff. At this point, you don't really need to worry about this. So click Apply Changes, now that we have our time zone and our country correct. And then we're going to go over to wireless networks. So, there are features where you can use wireless LAN groups. I'm going to suggest not doing that. A lot of stuff in the Ubiquiti forums, there's a particular feature you'll get out of it. You don't need it. If you set everything properly, you don't need it. There's maybe 0.1% of cases where somebody actually had to have it, not just wanted it. And that would be for the wireless, the zero loss handshaking. You don't need it. It's useless. If you're set up properly, you don't need it. So we're going to call this test Wi-Fi. We're going to say it's WPA personal. Let's give it a security key. We're going to say test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It should do it. And we're going to enable the automatic power saver. Why? Why not? You can do different user groups as far as if you want to set up, various methods of bandwidth for people, and all kinds of wonderful stuff. You don't need it. The captive portal for a guest policy up here is if you're going to set yourself up with some sort of a pay Wi-Fi. This is just a generic tutorial on how a home user would do this. Don't. You can get more elaborate on your own once you learn how to do the basics. So here's our LAN. This would be wrong in this case, but that's okay. It's not on the subnet I'm using, as you can tell, because when you look at the subnet down here, right here, it does not match what is up here, because it is not the same, and that's not what I use. So, now we have our guest control. We don't really need to worry about this, because we don't have the guest portal open, so we don't care. You can add additional administrators. I don't recommend that, other than create an extra one for yourself in the background, so that if you have a problem, you can get back in there. Here's your user groups. You know, bandwidth limit, upload limit. You know, you can set these up. Who cares? Most of the time, I don't think you'll deal with that if you're a corporate or home environment. So here's our controller. So you can override the host name and IP if you wish to. I leave it default. I really don't care. To make the controller discoverable on a layer 2 network, if you're in a small location that's on the same subnet, I would say turn it on. Otherwise, I'd say turn it off. You can set up the mail server for setting out alerts and stuff. I have that on in my real production environment, but I'm not going to bother with that over here. And then over here, you'll see Enable Cloud Access is on. As soon as you adopted it, it will connect. It will connect it for the account in which you did that. Let's look at maintenance. A lot of really cool things with maintenance, and here's the deal here. Historical data retention. If you're dealing with, I don't know, a site of, let's say, like 15, 20 access points, I would say go to 365 days, click apply. Current version of the software is up here, don't care about that. Backup data retention, you can download a backup if you want to store like the last 7 days, all time, whatever. You can restore from a file. Download support info, that's basically for Ubiquiti. If they start having problems, it's going to help them help you. You can see your show system config, which will tell you how you're set up currently. Your network config, what's set up there. It's obviously set up and happy. So, as we continue down, so here's your Cloud Key firmware version. If this doesn't say up to date down here beneath that, you want to check for update, and then you want to apply that update. And just so you know, that update could take 10, 15 minutes in some cases easily to apply. Sometimes it's the speed of the connection you're on. Other times it's the speed of the flash card. It just takes a while. From the last, what I remember, your Cloud Key is actually using a quad-core processor. It's not bad. So, and then you have your Cloud Key Controller software. So you also want the same thing with that. As of the publication date, this is on August 11th, 2016. This is the version number, and this is the up-to-date. I am a member of the beta program, but I do not have a beta firmware in this right now. That would be kind of torture for the rest of you, because it may show features that you could not have access to. We don't want to do that. So, you have options of Restart Cloud Key, Shutdown Cloud Key, and Reset Cloud Key. Now, Reset Cloud Key is going to bring it back to basically factory defaults from when Ubiquiti, or wherever you purchased it from, handed it to you. It will keep the update versions, but it will wipe all of your data out. You'll have to readopt it, that kind of thing. So let's see, how do we set up? Well, let's go back to the dashboard. So I use the Edge Max routers. I do not use the special, wonderful little Ubiquiti setup that they would suggest. I use my own homebrew, and that's part of why. So that's why all of these are grayed out, and it doesn't matter. Now, this one over here where it says wireless LAN, WLAN, that will change once you have real items on there. So once I go through the basics over here, I'll pop over to part of my production environment, and we'll give it a peek there. So here's the map. Now, when you're configuring a location, we're going to go into sample in this case. We're going to go to Google Maps, allow, let it grab our location approximately, and we're just going to find a place at random that I know of, and we're going to go ahead and adopt that and put that as our map. Ooh, capital, the egg. Let's go to satellite view. So, there we go there. This happens to be a place I used to work right here. Love some of the people there. So we're going to say this is the spot, and you can go ahead and save that. And you could go ahead and once you have your access point set up, you can literally place it on the map and be able to see where it is. So currently we don't have any access points found, and that's because, once again, this is not in production. We have no clients, it's not in production. No statistics, because we just set it up, it's not in production, and no insights. So let's go ahead and let's switch over to the live one, and let's see what we get there. So this is my production environment. This happens to be somewhere around my house. As you can see, now the wireless LAN up here tells you some information. Down here we have the number of devices, which are access points that are currently alive, in production, and adopted. We have the number of clients currently running, along with the approximate manufacturers. So we have a TiVo, we have an Apple, I think that's the iPhone that I have, and we have a Netgear device, which is a wireless extender that actually is a bridge that goes from wireless to Ethernet for an old TiVo, of all things. So, the one that says TiVo is an actual TiVo. That's the wireless identification off of the, is it the SSID or the MAC? Either way, doesn't matter. So let's look at the map here. Boom, there it is. I placed the item on there. We have the option to lock it or unlock it. Currently it's locked. We have statistics. Boom. Okay, you want to see an RF scan, you can do that. All this information right at your fingertips, so you can go ahead and see what's in the area. It says it does not support the Wi-Fi scan for this channel because it hasn't been scanned yet, and that's because this device was rebooted recently. It was actually done today because I was upgrading the firmware. I think it was the firmware. By the way, here's our radio information. 517 gigabytes, 249. As you can tell, it's a pretty big, 303 gigs, 7.54 gigs. Very big network, very quick. It's just burning off most of the time right now. It's not doing shit. So, there's our overview. 1 hour, 24 minutes, 19 seconds, just like I said. So here's guests. Now if you use the guest portal, your guests will show up here, and you can see what they are. Here we have users. We have my wife's TiVo, my iPhone, her tablet, and my TiVo, which is the living room TiVo. Here's the transmittal rates right here. So that's good information to find. So let's go ahead and close that, and let's go to our next item. So here's our devices. This is our access points. So sometimes you'll see it'll say something about detecting one and it not being adopted. You would just adopt it and tell us what network you want to run, which one of your sites. If you have multiple sites, for instance, you'll have that choice right there. Usually if I'm in here doing something, I set the refresh rate to every 15 seconds. If you did something and it didn't refresh recently, go ahead and hit the manual recycle button and you'll be set to go. So right now we have my living room, the IP address on that subnet, and the model, which is the AC light, which I love, and its current uptime. Now if we go ahead and we click on this, this is going to go ahead and tell us more. So we can go in here to our configuration. We could set our stuff. So right up here, here's the alias I gave that particular access point. Here's our radios. So right now it's hard-coded for channel 11 on the 20 megahertz bandwidth. And then for the AC, we have it on auto on the 80 megahertz bandwidth. And you can queue your changes and then you can apply it. So if I want to change this to this, it'll ask me, do I want to queue it? Let's see, now it says pending change. Then you'd hit apply change. We're going to cancel that this time because we don't want to do that. We're just going to ignore it. So that's radios. Wireless LANs, here's the ones I have set up. If you set up a Wi-Fi with a captive portal, then you'll see them there. You can have multiple wireless LANs on each one of these access points. So here's our network. It's using DHCP. I do not have it on a static IP. You could do that. I'm not. For my case, business use case, I don't care. Now, airtime fairness. This can be important if you have a congested wireless network. It's going to keep any one particular host from going ahead and literally burning through all of the potential available bandwidth. You have the custom upgrade. This is if you're using a beta firmware or an older firmware or you need to do something special. This is how you would go ahead and do that. You literally give it the location or the path to the bin file. It's going to do it. It's going to report back when it completed. You have your debug terminal. This is basically going to SSH into the device. You forget this device, which you never want to do on accident. It can make you drive all the way the hell back out, or you could just readopt it. Depends upon just how bad it went bad and in what manner you went it made it bad. Okay, are you sure you want to close this property pane? Or changes have not been applied. So if you go and you forget to make a change, in this case we did not forget, we're not doing it on purpose, we click confirm and away it goes. Now you have this locate feature right here. If you click this, your access point will start blinking wildly. This is great if you're in a hotel or something and you're trying to figure out, where is this access point? And it will eventually turn itself off. It's after like a minute or two, but it will blink wildly, which is great for trying to figure out what the hell is what. Especially if you have many access points on a floor. Somebody's calling you from a hotel. Listen, I'm in room such and such. You're not exactly sure because you didn't exactly get your map properly done when you were there. That'll help you, hey, is it flashing now? No? Okay. Trigger the next one. Is it flashing now? Oh, yeah, it is. Okay. Well, now you know which access point you're dealing with. Some of the other stuff you have here is your activity levels. You'll notice that I have a tablet here that's sucking a little bit of juice down, and we got the TiVo, which of course is going to just eat bandwidth. It's just the way it is. That's their total uptime overall, that since the controller saw them. No big deal there. It'll tell you wired too if you're using one of the Ubiquiti switches, the quote-unquote UniFi switches, or whatever they're calling them. I don't use those. They are nice. I wish I had the money. I don't. If they offered it free, I'd definitely use it. See, now my TiVo's starting to kick in there and suck something down. So let's look at statistics. So as I told you, I have a pretty healthy bandwidth here. That's over a terabyte. It's also in a month. So, it really sucks down some bandwidth. And, you can see various indications as to, when and what, so on, but it really sucks down some juice. Now here's the Insights tab. This can be very useful for you. This is the last 24 hours of what sucked down what. We don't care about that. Let's go with all. So this is all time. This is all the devices that have ever connected. And we'll go by last seen. So we'll go from most recently seen to least. And you'll see that obviously I have a relatively busy network. Things come and go. I work in computers, so that's kind of what happens. So if we go to events here, here's the last hour. We have the tablet connecting. We have a Nexus 5, which is one of my phones. And we have a 2420 computer connecting. Here's how many gigs, last used, good stuff. So let's go to the last 8 hours. Let's say somebody called us, we didn't get right back to it. Well, here's when I told it to restart earlier, today at 7 p.m. We have all the access points that tried connecting, what went on. We also have something else very important here. This access point was encountering some interference on channel 6. Now you may have noticed in one of the previous screens it's on channel 11. That's why. I found out that we had some trucks that were rolling down the road where they had built-in Wi-Fi, but they were hard-coded for channel 6 and they wouldn't get off channel 6. So by my switching to channel 11, I avoided that issue. And we haven't had any real problems since, but it hasn't been all that long either, so we'll see. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. You can go to, here's when I restarted it. Here's the overall, all the various things. So, here's the access point reconnecting after the reboot. Well, it took it about a minute. That's not totally uncommon. It may vary, but you'll see that there's all kinds of stuff you can glean out of this console, and I love it. I really do. So that was events. Next we have our alarms and alerts. In this case, they've all been archived, but here's the occasions in which they disconnected. Most of these coincide with a power failure or some sort of equipment failure in my household or my rebooting it due to testing. And then we have our actual system settings. So we have our site name, our country, our time zone. We have the status LED. That is, do you want the status LED on the access point turned on? And in my case, the answer is yes. I have alert emails enabled, so I will get an email if something goes wrong. And I got device authentication on, which of course, you want to get into it, you want to be able to authenticate. So we have our wireless networks. We have our 5K2, and we have the pay Wi-Fi. We don't worry about that. That's outside of the scope of this tutorial. We have our networks. We have our LAN. Here's the subnet it's set up on. Let's go look at what's there. So here we are. We have corporate environment, LAN, 8.1/24. That's going to give us our 1068 8.1 through 192.168.8.255. 254 quote-unquote usable addresses. You remember that the very first IP is taken by the gateway, and the very last IP is usually a broadcast. So you don't use those. It tells you you can use the 1 to the 254. Usually it's not going to allow you to use the first one. Maybe it will. Don't do that. It's just a bad idea. You have additional options here. So you have IGMP snooping. This is for use with the UniFi switches, UniFi gateway for the DHCP server, and the UniFi switch for the DHCP guarding. Now what is this DHCP guarding? This is saying, listen, this is the only DHCP server that I should ever talk to or that I should ever honor. That's basically what that does. So we're going to click cancel. We're going to get out of there. This is the guest control I told you about before. You're not going to worry about this in this particular tutorial. It's outside of the scope. We have admins. We have user groups. So we have the guest, which is limited to roughly 5 megabits by 1 megabit, just over. You know, I like to make sure that if somebody's going to use it, they're going to get more than what they thought. We have controller settings. This is where you would change your IPs. You have email server for alerts. You can use your authentication, the whole 9 yards. That'll go. We have cloud access, which of course was when you adopted it. That's what set that in motion. And we got maintenance. Now here's the thing. I recommend if you're busy, and it's a real busy access point, like you're in a hotel, that historical data retention be no more than maybe 60 or 90 days, and that you compact it regularly. Now in my case, there's almost nothing on it, so I'm compacting it now. It'll take it probably 10 seconds or so. And there it goes. It's done. We get our notification up here. Database was compacted. You have the ability to back up. You know, how much data do you want? Do you want 7 days, 30 days, 365 for a year, or just everything it has? You have that option. You have the ability to restore those. You have the download support information once again for Ubiquiti in the event they have a problem, and you have your system configuration, which I'm not going to show. You've pretty much seen it all anyways. So let's go back to the dashboard. So if you had a Ubiquiti security gateway and or their switches, see this says UniFi gateway required, you'd have your current latency on the network going to the gateway. You'd have your current throughput going through. You'd have your active devices on the WAN and your LAN. Now, I have their EdgeMax router, as I mentioned, and it does everything I need, and I like it, and it has no real issues. So let's go look at my wireless network as far as how I had that set up so it worked. So if we go here, you'll see this little field down here. This is telling it what IP the UniFi controller is on. This is extremely important. If you set up DHCP anywhere and you're going to plug one of these access points in and just hand it power, you need to specify this value. If you don't do it in the EdgeMax, then you need to do it in whatever DHCP you have, and you'll have to look up exactly what you need to change as far as options on that particular scope. But just keep in mind, you need to do that. So here's all my info right here. You know, we're using 8.1. We're going from .38 to .243. So we're not giving all the ranges out, but you know, we're giving out quite a few. We're giving out 203, 6 are currently in use, 197 are available, and 3 of those are basically reservations, what it refers to as static, which is not really static. So, not a bad product. I love it. I recommend it. These are not going to do everything on the planet you want them to do without some reading, but they are excellent, and I highly recommend them. So everybody, go ahead, buy up. The EdgeMax in this case, it's the so as I cut myself off, the edge router I'm using is the Ubiquiti EdgeMax X. I love these things. As you can see, they're very economical. And there's various companies you can get them from. You can also get them from Ubiquiti, you know, www.ubnt.com. And the way you get to it is by, and right here, U.S. customers buy direct. I love buying from them because usually they're about on the same price or cheaper in some cases. So here's EdgeMax, here's the various ones. Here she is, $49 What did we have a second ago? Let's see. What did we see on Amazon? Let's see here. Edge Router X, say $54. You know, what the hell? And yeah, there's other places you can get it from, but I like getting them from Ubiquiti just because, you know, I like to know that I'm supporting the company directly, and they have an awesome support staff. So this is very cool. I use port 0, ETH0, which is first port here on the left. That's usually my WAN link. So here we have port 1. As we go 0, actually. These, if you have one of the Ubiquiti switches, these can be powered off of one of their powered switches. And port 2, port 3. Now, port 4 here. This is a power over Ethernet enabled port. You can have this going directly to an access point. You can also have it monitor that access point. So if you give that access point a static IP and it doesn't respond within X number of time, you can tell it to shut the power off to that port and then cut the power back on later on. And if that doesn't, you know, do it for you, obviously you're going to have to go out there and make a tech visit. But part of the reason I like all this gear so much is I can have this stuff basically drop shipped to the customer and then walk them through configuring it. And you just can't beat that. So last time I purchased one of these was August 9th, which of course was 2 days ago. I have several of these. I love them. They just work, and they're basically retard proof.